Someone there?
It's me, Mario!
Welcome back to the Fan Creations Prop Shop. This is part 2 of the Mario build. Thank you for your patience. I apologise it's taken this long. If you care to watch the rest of the video, you'll see that it's been a bit of a nightmare, but we got there in the end. We got there. And thank you again for waiting as long as you have. It's been a year. Probably should have been about a week at best. But yeah, about a year. So I'm just going to get straight into it. If you don't really care about any of the, the problems I've had and the methods I used and what I did to achieve what I did, this timestamp will take you close enough to the reveal. If you actually do want to watch along and see what happened, watch this. Yes. Yeah, I'm getting 2 this time. Because I'm going to break something. There's so many ideas. Right, what next? Sonic? Maybe? This is fun stuff. Bit of Batman. Ideas. Do something with this dude. First thing you have to do with these pots is you need to remove the sticker and the residue that leaves behind. So if you go the method I did, which is basically just to scrub them in the sink, make sure you leave them to dry for a full 24 hours before you paint. And it's the same paint as before, same method as before, nice thick coat, and we're all caught up. So now that's painted, the idea was supposed to be, somehow I've got to mount this guy in there so he's like, and I want him to be posable, so I need an armature wire, okay? So, by pure chance, my mother has this thing, like fake branch, and that has an armature wire in it. So I'm going to open this hole up with the rotary tool now, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off with the tapered bit, tapered bit, and then I'm going to move on to this one, just to basically open it up so it'll accept the wired armatured stem. I'm going to anchor it in with milliput, and obviously don't forget your gags. Eye protection at all times, people. Safety first. So obviously I'm going to have to touch the paint up a little bit, but that's not too bad. I think that should be wide enough. I didn't realise you could pull these little leaf things off, so I'm going to keep these and I'm going to see if I can add one on later. Maybe jagged up the edges a bit. I'll compare it to a photo, but that's a good idea. Keep these to one side. But yeah, just york them off and use them for something else. Is that too high, maybe? Oh, bollocks to it. Done now. Oh, look at so close. There we go. Oh, do you know what it is? That's unintentionally perfect. So, milliput. What is it? It's basically a putty that sets rock hard. It's a 2-part putty, and basically, you mix part A with part B in equal measure, mash it together, and then let it cure. So the idea is to basically mix all of this together, stick it in there. It'll go rock hard enough where when I glue the crap out of this down to the base of the model, it'll give you enough purchase basically to pose said plant wherever you want it. In theory. Looks like a poo. Milliput can be a little bit tough when you first start working it, so if you do dip it in water the way I did to soften it up, just be aware it can get a little bit messy. Makes it easier, but it makes it a bit messy too. I'm reasonably happy with that, so I'm going to take this and just drive it home all the way at the bottom. That'll do me. Right, so I'm going to leave that now to set once I've tidied this up with a bit of a wipe. So give us 2 minutes. Yeah. Right. So I'm going to do the final bits with a Q-tip, but essentially what you want to do is just wipe off all that residue. so it looks all neat and tidy. So that's done.
24 hours later.
Rock hard. So what we're going to do is we're going to put some flocking on that. So this is basically what it is, like spongy stuff that's scale modelers use to make it look like turf. So that's what we're going to do. Don't even have to be neat about it, just wang it in there. Honestly, I'm pretty happy with that, but so far that's where we are with the piranha plant, so we'll move on from here. Right, so it's come time to put the spots on this fella here, and what I've had my wife do is basically cut little circles out on the silhouette cutter, so we use them as stencils essentially. Stick them on, and I'm just using the Citadel paints again just to layer up that white, get the dots on. That should do. Get some paint on the go. So I'll leave that to dry for a bit. Luckily, I have a little drying stand, which is in the form of yonder plant. So there you go. He's a bit tall at the minute, but we'll leave him there to dry, and come back to paint later on. Move on to something else for the time being. So the banana peel that I did before he's okay. It's not awful. I'm just not 100% happy with the paint finish of getting on that one. And it was kind of weird that I had 3 of everything and only 1 of this little guy. So I've decided, as you can see, to print 6 more, just in case I make a mistake, because we all know how that goes. And what I'm going to do this time is I'm going to airbrush the paint on. So I've managed to get myself one of these things, and I now have yellow. So I can do a yellow. I kind of wish I'd had this to do the shells, but never mind. We're going to prime them, and then we're going to paint them, and then we're going to do other things, and it's going to be very wonderful. You'll see. Just watch this. Yes, that's what we had. Slightly brighter colour, to be fair. Damn sight brighter, actually. But it's the choices we've made. I think that'll look okay actually once it's on the model, to be fair. That bright yellow's pretty bright. But we'll see. I might end up having to paint these all again. We live and learn. So annoyingly, I've gone back and forward with these bananas in terms of the colour anyway. So this is what I'm kind of sitting with at the minute. And that is the airbrushed yellow, which I don't have to hand right now. The one I did previously was with the Citadel yellow with a brush. And to be honest with you, I prefer this yellow. As much as I like the finish with the airbrush, you really can't beat the brightness of that yellow. So I'm just going to go over them, just with a crappy little brush here. And the Citadel yellow, brighten these lads up, and then we can really start making some progress. Right, so the final thing left to do with the bananas before I put the magnets on, but that's a whole different story, is I've got to do the faces on these guys. Now, I did practice on one, which I've then ruined. It's really small, so try and get up and focus. See the little smiley face on there? Trying to fill that in with the wash and it ruined the yellow. And the eyes are so small. They are raised. Come on, focus. There we go. They are raised, but it is quite difficult to paint them. This is a practice one, as is this one that got covered in fluff when I was painting it, which you can see just ruins the whole thing. But anyway, this is why I printed extras. The plan is to use a Sharpie, and it worked last time.
2 seconds later.
Ruined. It's so difficult to do when I'm filming this. I want to give it a go off camera and see if I can get it done, and then I'll show you how that looks, or I'll come back and cry in front of the camera. So the idea with these is I want to make the model customizable so you can interchange all of these wherever you want them to be. And I don't want it to just rest on because that would look a bit crap. So I'm going to put teeny tiny little magnets. Basically, I've got one here, that size, kind of. These tiny little magnets. I'm going to sink one of them in there on each of these. Luckily for me, the banana peel, it just kind of sits in there like so. But anyway, I'm going to add these on, and then I'll explain the rest later on once I've got magnets in. So let's do that. It's near impossible to get this on camera, but essentially all I've done here is I've took my drill with a drill bit and a little marker on the depth of one of those teeny tiny little magnets, and I've taken the shell here as an example and I've drilled a teeny little hole in. So the idea is get it to stick my finger, which I can't. The magnet is going to sit like so on the bottom of the shell. Then there's going to be magnets embedded in the actual model, so they will then sit like so. But again, that's in theory, so we'll drill holes in all these, add magnets, and then we'll move on from there. So I've put these little tiny magnets in the underside of all of these, and obviously the reason I've done that is trying to attach them to the model, but I also want to give them a clear coat. These I want to kind of shine up a bit, especially since I dropped some super glue on it and it's gone shiny. And these ones I just want to keep dull, but I want to be able to paint them properly. So I've knocked this up, just obviously thing full of nails. The idea is put that on there, put that on there, put that on there, put that one on there, and then we'll paint them, and then that'll be very wonderful. This stupid thing I've done, you know how I clear coated everything, right? I decided to give this a clear coat with, which one was it? Rust-Oleum matte. But if you look very closely, some of the red has ran in to the white and it's caused it to crack, which I don't even understand why that's happened because it hasn't happened on the shells. Right, I've had an idea. As you can see, it's wrinkled and cracked, this paint. So one way or the other, we're going to have to finish this off again and repaint it. The idea I've got is range of sandpaper here from 800 all the way up to 3000 grit. I'm going to sand that back ever so slightly. Then I'm going to repaint it, but I'm going to repaint it with a Humbrol enamel gloss white. Truthfully, because I want the glossiness on the lips. I think if I just go back over that with an acrylic style Citadel paint, it's not going to work because it needs to be sealed. So I think this is probably the best way to go. You know, let's give it a try, see how we get on. So that's everything painted up now. It's time to work on this dude. The plan is, obviously, bear with me 2 seconds here. The plan is, he's coming screeching around this corner like so, all right? If you're power sliding around the corner, your wheels on facing forward. The only way we can really combat that is to pull the wheels off. They do come off quite easily, just like these little, where's the camera bit? There's these little peg things there, and they just kind of sit through there. But I've pulled these off, and what the plan is I'm going to snip these on like a 45-degree angle and then mount the wheel like that. So when he's, oh god, of course I dropped it. Why wouldn't you drop it, Chris? So once he's power sliding round, the wheel is essentially going to be on that angle, if that makes any sense. That's what I'm planning on doing anyway. Whether or not that works, again, is a totally different story. But we'll see how we get on. And then it's all about making the flames. So let's do that. Anyone with a 3D printer is going to be pretty familiar with these flush cutters. That's what I'm going to use to try and get this thing cut. So take the wheels off and work this out. So please work. Don't know how to do it that way, that would make more sense. Well, it's done now. I mean, I'll tell you what I could do, really. because that isn't working, is I could just cut the whole thing flush and then that's better. I tell you what, we're even better than that. Hacking the whole thing to bits. It's nice soft plastic as well, so that's pretty easy to work with. I'm going to trim this whole thing off. It's because of this bit. This is the bit that's hindering me here. So I'm going to overcome this problem and then get back to you, but the idea is to have that on that kind of angle there. Right. Right, well, I figured it out. I think I figured it out. What I did was, I dropped the wheel on the floor again. I nipped the pegs off that retain the wheels. I kept said pegs and I pushed them back in so the wheel didn't have a hole in it. And I super glued those in just with cheapy chatty. It's actually good stuff this, but it's cheap. It's basically acrylate, you know, this one. Super glue. It's 2 seconds when I find that wheel. God damn it, Chris. So what I had to do was get them on the right angle. If you look carefully, what I've done, I've actually snipped each peg in half there. And on the other side, I did the opposite way, if that makes sense. So I flattened the front on this and the back on this. Reason being, I need this wheel to sit like that. And I want that one to sit yonderness. So, in theory, this should work. So what I've got here is I've got a toothpick, which I've just nipped the end off, and Q-tip, cotton bud, terminology's up to you. Glue, things and stuff. So, and also please excuse me manky nails, I ripped that one off at work. And it looks pretty gross. I'm going to put a drop of glue on there. And then try and gently I don't know if this is getting enough on. It kind of is, I think. Right, okay, so I'll get that out of the way before you glue yourself to yourself. You want that like that. Ah, no, but we want it at driving height. And we're going to sit here for... This is why you have plan B. However, just in case, I'm going to try and not glue that to my finger. I'm going to try and come up with a way of fixing this one. Because I'd rather not just start chopping into that one to have the same thing happen again. Can you remember this thing? When we were making the Piranha plant. This has, like, this is a smaller piece of it. And it has armature wires in it. But if you look, it's a bunch of little wires. I'm going to try and pull one of these out. And then drill a teeny tiny hole there. And a teeny tiny hole there. And then just try and bend it into place. Yay. Right. So that's what I'm going to try and use, that piece of wire there. Right, I think the first thing we need to do with this is tidy that little edge up there. So I'm just going to use a nail file. Obviously, if you've got sandpaper, use sandpaper. If you haven't, improvise, adapt, overcome. That's what we do. And I'm just going to use this little kind of needly style thing to bore a hole in there so I can put these wires in. You don't need me to tell you this. If you're going to use any drills, any power tools, anything like that, use eye protection. You can buy another one of these. You can buy more of this. You can't buy yourself another set of eyes. So don't do. And I know I mess around a lot, right? But don't mess around with your safety stuff. Protect your eyes. Back on with the gigs. There it is. There we go. We've now got that wire through the axle there. I could potentially... I'm just going to do the same with these wheels. I'm going to drill into the centre of these wheels and then... So I've been fanning on with this for quite a while now, and I think I've figured out why it's not working. If you look at where the centre of that is and where the centre of that is, they line up perfectly, right? But the point is, I want the wheel to be turning as if he's drifting. So I'm trying to get the angle right for you. Right there. So it needs to be like that. Now that then offsets these two holes. So realistically, I need to be drilling another hole somewhere about there. Please work, please work. 'Cause if you don't, I'll have a cry. It didn't work, what the hell is wrong with me? I know, no I don't. I mean, I might have to drill some holes in the wheel, like there, kind of at the top. See if that kind of angle works. Well, the glue clearly works. Ow. So what I've ended up doing, it's a bit of a mess at the minute. Like, I've kind of drilled a channel in the top, and like, I don't know if you can see from that angle, but it's like a little channel going into the top of the wheel. Reason being, I need to have it sit on an angle like that. So what I've done, it's really difficult to kind of show you, but if you can see how that's sitting in there in the wheel, the idea is when this is dry, pull the wire through, and that sits, oh god, like that. And then I'll do the opposite on the other side once I've trimmed that down. However, this is quite delicate, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave this for a good couple of hours to really set up. In fact, I might even drip an extra bit of glue on there. Hopefully that'll set up nice and solid, and then we can move on to the other side. But this is just this build has really kicked my teeth in. That seems to be sticking up quite nicely actually, so I'm still going to leave that a bit because I want to make sure it's really cured before I start working on the other side. But for you, it's the magic of editing. That'll be happening momentarily. I'm just getting up close here so you can actually see how I've done that. This is so difficult to film, but I think you get the gist of how that's been achieved. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to take this little brush here and I'm going to blend that in. I'm just going to paint these. So that's that done. I'm happy with that. Right, move on. This is the shot that inspired the build. The sparks I've been talking about is the next step, and this is the shot I want to try and replicate. And the method I chose first time around didn't quite go as planned. So I used this acetate sheet to basically cut out a shape reminiscent of the sparks, essentially like this. And I covered that in some translucent paint, and then I dabbed off the excess with a sponge. Now, there's a bit off camera you don't see where I added different blue on top of this one. And I put that in front of a candle flicker LED to try and achieve that spark look. And this is how it looked first time round.
Looks like shit.
It does look like shit.
So yeah, that didn't work the way I wanted it to. I mean, it was, in theory, I think I'm just going to keep this idea, but I'm going to evolve it. So, get rid of that for now. And I'm going to try these. And what they are, I guarantee if you're a fan of Boil Eye Hobby Time, and if you're not, you should be, go and check that channel out. You'll be familiar with these. They are flexible LED filaments like that. Yay. So I'm going to try and kind of wrap that around the wheel, have the wires going through the model, and then have a clear one of these to disperse the sparks. I'll make it bigger so there's a cutout for the wheel. I don't know if you've seen any of that because my camera work is shocking, but that's what we're going to try. And if that doesn't work, then I don't know. I need me wire strippers, heat gun, heat shrink, battery pack, piece put ebb. No, that's switches, soldering iron, a little third hand thing. I'll tin these and attach some wire first, and then we'll attach them to the car, and then we'll mount them through the model so we know where the holes are drilled. So let's get cracking with that. What the hell? Why not switch that on? No, it's... Okay, so my soldering iron doesn't work. I've tinned these wires, and I'm just using this battery pack here to find out which is the positive and which is the negative, because I don't actually know. So it looks to me like this side is positive, this side is negative. So now that that's tinned, I'm going to put some wire on there. So, like most things in this build, this has been a bit of a ball ache, but I've managed to do it. So, what I've made here is two of these. So, obviously, negative, positive, LED filament in the middle, times 2. The plan is, and I don't know how many times I've said that and it's gone wrong, but never mind. The plan is, I'm going to find his final location on the model. Hypothetically, let's say it's there. Mark out where the rear wheels are. Then I'm going to have to drill right through the model. And we're going to mount these filaments around the wheel and through the model at the bottom. And I'm going to diffuse that light by kind of re-engineering this idea here with like using a piece of acetate. This is garbage, I'm going to throw this away, but I'm going to do this bigger. I'm going to sand it so it's kind of opaque. Do a cutout for the wheel so it kind of sits up against the LEDs, and then hopefully that'll diffuse the light out. So I've actually just realised when it comes to doing this, before I drill the holes in, that's the battery pack that we're going to be using for this build. It's just 2 AA batteries in there. The problem I've got with that is that's the underside of this model. So there's not a lot of clearance to put that underneath, because I'm going to mount a switch as well. So if I put that underneath, you can see the problem we've got here straight away. So, improvise, adapt, overcome. The plan is I'm going to try and kind of transplant the model from this into this deeper box frame, and hopefully that'll work. If it doesn't, I also have an alternative for this plan, which I'm going to turn into an idea anyway. So I 3D printed, sanded and painted and smoothed out this little thing here. And the idea is, if this plan doesn't work, I can make 4 legs like that. But I'm going to make a mold of this, cast them in resin, and make them look like the actual, like this. When they're done, I can put a magnet in that, and I can mount that on the model. If it does work, so then you've still got something to put on the model. If not, we'll see how the first thing goes, and then we'll just kind of adapt. But that's where we're at the moment. So I'm going to open this up, see if I can transplant that in. So, let's get it done. Give me a minute, mess with this and see if I can get it in. As you can see, I hope from there, that's the bit that's kind of causing problems. That is flush on the side there and there, right? So, I'm thinking, if I trim the apex down, and I know exactly what you're thinking because I'm thinking the same thing, this bloody apex. If I trim it down, it'll fit the nicer frame, which was just as cheap as this, by the way. If I'd just done it in this frame in the first place, we wouldn't be having this conversation, but anyway. Do I do it, or do I just make the feet? Let's just class it up a bit. And it means I only have to make one of the resin cubes, which would be a nice feature to add. And I can put a thicker magnet on underneath because I've got the extra space to do so. I might just do that, you know. And I've tidied that end up, and I've tidied that end up just with the tape again. So we're going to try again, put it in this frame now that I've shortened it, and hope I haven't ruined the entire model. Yay! Oh, I'm quite happy with that now, actually. That's a bit more classy, isn't it? There he is. I like that. And it gives us room for electronics without having to put ugly legs on it. But it now means we have an extra thing to make. Let's get a mold made for this. Get a little resin one of these done. We've had problems, as always. Basically, to start it off, this thing didn't go at all the way we planned. The mold came together. It looks gross, but it was liquid tight, so it served its purpose. However, I don't know if this stuff has a shelf life, or what I did wrong, but I did it exactly 1-for-1 by weight on scales and everything. I mixed it properly for ages. Put it in. It's been 3 days now, and yeah, that's not setting. So, a fail. I'm going to bin that idea for the time being. We have technically, so far, maybe potentially solved the sparks problem. I'm using the other Mario as an example here. I couldn't get through this stuff without it doing that. Focus camera, you silly thing. There you go, the cracks. These cracks were just too much to handle. I know I was going to sand this anyway, but that looks amateur. So I binned that idea. I did try a thinner sheet. That also did not work. Focus again, thank you very much. So I had to resort to the 3D printer. And I've got some clear PLA. I took this stock image. I loaded that into Tinkercad and turned it into this, which the camera will also not focus on. There we go. So the idea was, there's a little channel in there, I don't know if you can see that. The LED sits on there. That sits on the wheel, like so. And obviously I'll sand it so you can't see the layer lines. That sits like that. The LED's inside that. That'll glow and give the sparks. However, I don't know if you've noticed it, it's massive. So that had to go. Redesigned, re-engineered, and we came up with this. Come on. There we go. So it's now about that big, which I think looks pretty cool, and it'll look even cooler when it's glowing with neon blue light. So I'm going to get the sand in these, mount the LEDs, drilling through, and just watch this. the safest way to do that, but at least you got to see it. He now has his, I was going to say final resting place, that sounded a bit ominous. Woo. There we go. So we know that that's where he's gonna sit, basically, is about there. However, the whole point in that is get these LEDs through. So let's give that a try. Little dry run here. There may be swearing.
Thousands of tears later.
Just snap this bloody LED filament. No, I only bought 2. So I'm raging right now. I might even have to make this a 3-parter, but I don't want to do that. I'm going to go and see if I can order another one of these filaments or a bag of them. But yeah, yet another problem. To be fair, I should have known. This is my fault. I should have known better than to trust myself to do it first time. But hindsight's a beautiful thing, isn't it? So until that's ordered, this thing's on hold again.
4 to 6 weeks later.
Finally. Right, let's try this again.
A few minutes later.
Right, so I've done a lot of this work off camera because it was really awkward to do and film. It was awkward to do anyway, but to do it and film it was a real pain in the backside. So I'm going to quickly come up close here and show you what I've done. I've managed to get the LED filaments around both the wheels. And I don't know if you can see it here, but I drilled a hole in the model and fed the wires through to the underside, and I've wired that up in parallel to a little 3-volt battery box, and I've put a push button switch on the back like that. So this is Tinkercad. I've mentioned this before. If you're not familiar with it, go and check it out. It's free online CAD software and it's good. It's really good stuff. So I started with basically that explosion shape. I measured the wheel of the car and turned it into a recess, chopped some of it off so it looks like that. Basically, nice solid shape. Then what I did was I hollowed it out. So I don't know how well it's going to be able to zoom in here, but that's essentially what it looks like. So it's a hollow shape with a lid is how that is now, and I'm hoping that's going to be the most efficient way of diffusing that light. I've also put some cutouts here and here so that LED can go around the tire and not inhibit where that sits. So I'm going to get these printed. I'm printing these on the Anycubic Chiron, not with that wasp blue filament, but I do have some clear filament in there somewhere. So I'm going to get that printed, sanded, put on the model, and we can start getting the final touches done. This is where we are with the sparks now. I'm pretty happy with what we've done. So without the lights on, this is what we're looking at here. With the diffuser, it's just the same on the other side. And this was also a bit of a pain. So the steps I've gone through was the first bit that you've seen with the acetate. Then I went from this one, which was too big. Then this one, because I thought there was something wrong with that, but I couldn't quite figure it out. That it wasn't because it was blue, it was because it was massive. So I made a smaller one. That had an issue where the channel in there wasn't sitting right with the LED. So I made this thing, which was a hollowed version of the same file with a skinny little lid for that. Sanded that down, added that on. Focus, please. There we are. Thank you very much. And the lights are finally done, so I'm going to just add the little finishing touches to this whole power slide. So what I'm going to do first of all is I'm going to spin this around, and you can't really see it with this light, but I've marked out 2 faint pencil lines from where the skid mark's going to be. And then I'm going to use these pastels to basically scratch off some of the black and dry brush that on just around here, just to create that kind of tire screeching thing. And I'm going to be doing that with a combination of whatever the hell that thing's called and a brush that I've just trimmed down to be the kind of width of a tire. So let's get cracking with that, see how it looks. I've printed here is a teeny tiny little flame there. So in reality, that is like, it's that big. It's not like ridiculously titchy, but it's small.
That's what she said.
I'm just going to show you this before I do it, because there's not a cat in hell's chance I'm going to be able to do it. So I'm taking these tiny little yellow flames that I've printed and painted here, and I'm going to glue them into the exhausts here. There's no way, because of this plant and everything and the setup that I've got here, this kind of weird little arm thing, that I'm ever going to be able to video this and do it at the same time. So I'm going to do it off camera and show you what it looks like when it's finished. But for now, these magnets are embedded. The next thing we need to do is just kind of mill this part out. But we're getting there. And they look pretty good, if I do say so myself. So that's them done. Last little touches now. That's the magnets finished, installed, and I've painted over them. It might look a little bit messy right now, especially that bit there. And you can kind of still see those pencil lines. I wanted to rub those out, but I can't, because I've tried, and it does take this surface away. So unfortunately, I'm going to have to live with that. But it doesn't draw attention. Once, you know, everything's set up, it looks pretty good. The next step we have at this point is just to basically attach the magnets in order for the enemies to be sat here. And these are our enemies. So we've got Luigi, we've got Toad, and we've got Yoshi. I understand that they're not technically enemies, but to be fair, this line of toys only has these 4 characters. So we're going to have to make do and mend, but we're on the home stretch now, guys. In order to make the leaves for the piranha plant, I've had my wife make this shape and cut it out on a silhouette cutter. And I've got a little bit of light green vinyl for the inside as well, just to kind of replicate the look from the game. So this is what I've ended up with. And what I'm going to do is, I'm going to take these leaves, chop them like this. And what I've discovered as well, I'll show you on this one, is you can just peel those off and it leaves the stem behind. So I'm going to use that stem to attach those vinyl stickers. That's to close in on itself. And basically, that's the leaves for the piranha plant. Come on, you little git. thanks very much for watching, guys. I really hope you enjoyed that video. But if you didn't, that's okay too. I'm going to try and upload a little bit more frequently in the future. There was no need for this to take as long as it did, and I can only offer my apologies there. That was me procrastinating and running into problems and just going, nah, I've had enough. I think we've all been there at some point, haven't we? But never mind, like I say, we got there in the end. So thanks again for joining me. I really, really, really do hope you enjoyed that video, and I hope you'll join us in the next one. And until then, guys, remember, be free and proud to live and love your fandom. Take care. So I think it's safe to say that I may have underestimated just how bright these LEDs are. That's one hell of a power slide.